The sky above the distant world of Korath was a dull red, casting an eerie glow on the ruins of what had once been a thriving civilization. Deep within the rubble of a collapsed city, a group of archaeologists sifted through the dust, searching for something that had been lost to history. They had found remnants of technology far beyond their own, but it was a peculiar object that had caught their attention. An ancient tablet, its surface etched with strange symbols, glowing faintly even in the dim light of the dying sun. Dr. Evelyn Klein, the lead archaeologist, crouched beside the tablet, brushing away the dirt with a steady hand. The moment her fingers made contact, a pulse of energy surged through the air, and the symbols began to glow brighter. She stood up quickly, her heart pounding in her chest. "This isn't just any artifact," she whispered, her voice barely audible to her team. The rest of the team gathered around, their faces filled with confusion and awe. The tablet wasn't just an old relic, it was alive. There was something deeply wrong about it. The energy that radiated from it wasn't something they had encountered before. It felt ancient, as though it had been waiting for centuries, maybe millennia, for someone to find it. Evelyn carefully examined the symbols, her mind racing. They were unlike any language she had ever seen, but there was a pattern to them, a rhythm that called out to her. As she traced the symbols with her fingers, she felt a strange pull, almost as if the tablet was trying to communicate with her. She felt a deep chill run down her spine as the words on the tablet began to form in her mind, not in her language, but in something more primal, more instinctive. The message was clear. They guard what is worse. The end will come from the earth. She recoiled, her breath catching in her throat. She wasn't sure if she understood it fully, but the message felt urgent, like a warning from a long-forgotten race. The team looked at each other in confusion, and Evelyn knew that this was only the beginning. Whatever this was, it wasn't meant to be discovered. And yet, they had found it, hidden in the ruins of a civilization that had vanished without a trace. The warning was simple, but its implications were terrifying. What did it mean by worse? And why did it point to Earth, a planet most civilizations had long forgotten? Evelyn quickly gathered her team. "We need to get this back to the research station immediately. If the warning is real, Earth might be in danger." The others exchanged nervous glances. They had always believed Earth was a relatively insignificant planet in the grand scheme of the galaxy, out of the reach of any true threat. But now, this discovery was challenging everything they thought they knew. As they hurried back to their transport, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, following them. The air around them seemed heavier now, the sky a deeper shade of red, as if the planet itself was warning them to leave. She glanced back at the ruins, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her. Whoever had left this message knew something she didn't, and it was now her responsibility to uncover the truth. When they returned to the research station, Evelyn wasted no time. She transmitted the findings to the scientific community, and within hours, a team of top experts from across the galaxy were gathered, reviewing the artifact's data. But no one could make sense of it. The language was unlike any known to modern civilization, and the symbols defied every attempt at translation. It was as if the message had been designed to remain a mystery. Then the transmissions began. At first, they were small, just static-filled bursts of energy that the team initially dismissed as interference. But soon, they became more frequent and more intense. Strange patterns began to emerge in the static. It was as though the universe itself was trying to tell them something important. As the team continued to study the signals, they began to recognize a pattern, a sequence of numbers and symbols that seemed to repeat. It was then that Evelyn realized something. The signals weren't random. They were a message from a time long past, warning them of something they had no understanding of. The signals continued for days, growing louder and more urgent. The transmissions weren't coming from Korath anymore. They were coming from somewhere much closer. From Earth. The signals were being broadcast from deep space, and they were aimed directly at Earth. The message was clear now. Earth was the key to something far darker than they could ever imagine. Evelyn couldn't believe what she was seeing. What was it about Earth that made it the focus of these ancient civilizations? What secret was hidden there, buried beneath centuries of history? She didn't know, but she knew one thing for sure. They weren't the only ones interested in Earth now. There were others who had been watching the planet for eons, waiting for this moment. Her hand trembled as she typed a message to the highest authorities in the galaxy. The warning was simple, but its impact was massive. Earth is the center of something far worse. It must be protected at all costs. But as Evelyn hit send, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was already too late. The galaxy was vast, and there were many forces at play, forces that had already set their sights on Earth. And now, those forces would stop at nothing to uncover its secret, to unlock what had been hidden for so long. The question was no longer if Earth was in danger. The question was whether humanity itself would survive the coming storm. As the transmission ended, Evelyn stared at the screen, the weight of her discovery sinking in. The ancient civilizations had warned them. They had left behind a message, a warning that Earth was guarding something far worse than they had ever anticipated. And now, it was up to them to figure out what that was before it was too late. In the silence that followed, one thing was certain. The universe was about to change, and Earth was at the center of it all. The tension in the research station was palpable as Dr. Evelyn Klein sat in front of her screen, her eyes fixed on the blinking cursor. The message had been sent, but the silence that followed felt even louder than the chaotic activity that had preceded it. Across the galaxy, authorities were scrambling to process what she had discovered, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that they were too slow. She had never believed in fate, but now, everything seemed to be falling into place, as if the universe had been quietly guiding them toward this moment for centuries. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden hum of the station's communication system. A message blinked onto the screen, urgent, encrypted. She didn't need to decode it to know who it was from. The Council had received her transmission, and they were coming for Earth. The message was blunt. We're sending a fleet to Earth. Prepare for containment protocols. The situation is more critical than anticipated. Evelyn swallowed hard. The words seemed to hang in the air, the weight of them sinking in. The fleet was on its way. And whatever secret Earth was hiding, it was far worse than they could have imagined. She quickly forwarded the warning to the rest of her team, urging them to prepare for what was coming. But deep down, she feared it would be too late. The silence had been broken, and the galaxy was now awake, fully aware of Earth's dark secret. The first signs of the approaching threat came within hours. A deep tremor rumbled beneath the station, shaking the walls and causing the lights to flicker. It wasn't just the station, it was the planet itself. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble with a restless energy, as though something below was stirring, something ancient, something alive. Outside, the sky turned a dull purple, the clouds swirling in unnatural patterns. The air felt thick, charged with an energy that hadn't existed in the atmosphere before. Evelyn stepped outside, her breath catching in her throat. The signs were unmistakable. Earth wasn't just guarding a secret, it was becoming a beacon for forces that had been dormant for millennia. As the hours passed, reports began flooding in from across the globe. Strange phenomena were being witnessed everywhere: unexplained weather patterns, massive power surges, and unmarked ships appearing at the edges of Earth's atmosphere. It wasn't just the ancient civilizations sending messages. Others, beings she couldn't begin to comprehend, were moving in. They had felt the awakening. They knew what was buried beneath the surface. In a secure facility miles from the research station, a group of military officers convened in a sterile, windowless room. They had been briefed, but no one could quite believe the gravity of what they were facing. The theory was simple, yet terrifying. Earth was protecting something, a force so powerful that it could alter the balance of the entire galaxy. The ancient warnings weren't just idle threats. They were a prelude to something much darker. And now, it seemed, the forces that had kept this secret hidden for so long were finally waking up. The military commander, General Darius, paced back and forth, his mind racing with the possibilities. Earth had always been considered a backwater planet, largely ignored by the other galactic powers. But now it was at the center of a cosmic struggle, a battleground between forces far beyond their comprehension. His mind went to the artifact, the tablet that had sparked this whole series of events. He had read the message from Korath. Earth guards something worse. But worse than what? What could possibly be so dangerous that it had the power to unite civilizations that had long been at odds? And why had no one ever come close to uncovering it before? The answer, he feared, was simple. The power that lay beneath Earth's surface was not just a weapon. It was a force, alive, ancient, and capable of reshaping the galaxy itself. They had only scratched the surface of the truth, but they were running out of time to learn more. The galaxy's most powerful factions were on their way, and they wouldn't stop until they had what Earth was hiding. As General Darius returned to his console, a communication from the fleet arrived. The commander's face grew pale as he read the message. "We've detected something. A massive energy signature coming from Earth. It's alive." The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Whatever was on Earth, whatever had been hiding beneath the surface for eons, was waking up. And it wasn't just the galactic fleets that were coming for it. Something far worse, something even darker, was stirring, and it was bound to Earth. The general's mind raced as he considered the consequences. Could Earth be a time bomb, ticking down to something catastrophic? And if it was, could humanity survive the blast? Back at the research station, Evelyn felt the weight of the discovery settle upon her like a heavy mantle. The artifact's warning had been clear. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a guard, a protector of something that no one, no civilization, was meant to possess. The ancient races had feared it. And now, Earth had unknowingly become the center of a galactic war. Evelyn turned away from the screen, her mind spinning. It was no longer just about protecting the planet. It was about surviving it. Something was coming, and it wasn't just alien invaders. The message was clear. The forces of the universe had awoken, and they were hungry. Hungry for the secret Earth was hiding. Hungry for the power buried deep within its core. And soon, the galaxy would know what Earth had been guarding all along. But would humanity be ready to face what was coming? The tension on Earth continued to grow as the days passed. The strange phenomena were no longer just isolated incidents. They were happening everywhere, across every continent. Unexplainable energy surges rippled through cities, causing electrical grids to fail. In remote regions, the ground trembled as though something immense was shifting beneath the surface. The very air seemed to vibrate with an energy no one could comprehend. And every time the world thought it might catch its breath, the sky above would pulse with an unnatural glow, followed by an eerie silence. Something was happening, something unstoppable. Dr. Evelyn Klein had barely slept in the last 48 hours. The discovery of the ancient artifact, the warnings about Earth's dark secret, and the messages that had been flooding in from across the galaxy had consumed her every waking thought. It wasn't just the scientific community in a state of panic. Governments worldwide were scrambling to understand what was happening, and more importantly, how to protect the planet from whatever was coming. She had seen it with her own eyes. The energy signatures coming from beneath Earth's crust. They were undeniable. There was a power, ancient and immense, buried deep within the planet. But now it was waking up. The signals that had once been faint were growing stronger, and the artifact, which had once sat dormant and silent in her lab, was now pulsing with increasing intensity. Evelyn paced in her office, her mind racing. If only she had more time to figure out what this meant. The messages from Korath and other ancient civilizations had been cryptic, their warnings filled with a kind of ancient dread. They had all left the same message. Earth guards something worse. Worse than what? Worse than all the wars, all the tragedies that had ravaged the galaxy over eons. What could be so terrifying that entire civilizations had been wiped out, and the survivors had been forced to hide it beneath the very core of Earth? Her thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of her communicator. She quickly answered, her face set in determination. "Evelyn, it's General Darius," came the voice on the other end. "We need you to come to the command center immediately. There's been an update." Her heart sank. Every passing hour made it clearer. Time was running out. Minutes later, she arrived at the command center, a vast underground facility designed for humanity's most critical missions. General Darius was there, standing with several high-ranking officers. The room was filled with tension, the air thick with the gravity of the situation. "What's happening?" Evelyn asked, her voice steady but edged with worry. Darius didn't mince words. "We've confirmed something, Evelyn. Something worse than we feared. The energy signatures we detected, they're not just power sources. They're alive. We don't know what's causing them, but they're growing. And they're pulling in energy from all over the planet. The entire core of Earth seems to be resonating with these signals." Evelyn felt a chill creep down her spine. Alive? What does that even mean? But she didn't have time to ask. The general's expression grew darker as he continued. "We've received reports from the fleet. They're already on their way to Earth. But they're not alone. There's something else, Evelyn. Something that's been hiding. Something ancient, just like the messages from the old civilizations. It's on its way, too." Evelyn's mind raced. The fleet, the unknown force, they were all heading straight for Earth. Whatever was about to happen, it wasn't just about keeping the secrets safe anymore. Earth was at the center of a galactic conflict, and its fate hung in the balance. But what did it mean for humanity? Would they become pawns in a fight they didn't even understand? "We've isolated some of the signals," Darius said, cutting through her thoughts. "They're originating from several points on the planet, but the strongest source is a place deep within the Pacific Ocean. We believe it's a hidden temple, older than anything we found, and it's connected to the power beneath Earth's surface." Evelyn's mind went back to the messages from Korath. The warning. Earth guards something worse. She was certain now that the power under the surface wasn't just a weapon. It was something far more dangerous. But what? And why hadn't anyone discovered it before? Her instincts kicked in. "We need to get to the Pacific. We need to find this temple. Whatever's hidden there, it's the key to everything." But Darius shook his head. "We can't send a team there. The energy signatures around the Pacific are fluctuating wildly. Anything we send in is going to be swallowed whole by whatever's down there. We need to understand the full scope of this before we make any moves." Evelyn frowned. She understood the risks, but she also understood the urgency. The fleet wouldn't wait forever. They were getting closer to Earth every day, and the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. She wasn't sure how much longer they could keep the situation contained. They needed answers now, and she was willing to go to the heart of the problem herself if it meant saving humanity from the destruction she knew was coming. As she walked out of the command center, the weight of what lay ahead began to settle in. The signals were intensifying, the ancient messages growing clearer, and the fleets of distant civilizations closing in on Earth's location. The warnings from the dead civilizations echoed in her mind, and she understood one painful truth. No matter how advanced Earth had become, they were unprepared for what was about to unfold. For as much as humanity had evolved, they had never fully understood their place in the galaxy. Now, they were about to learn a terrible lesson. The secrets of Earth weren't just waiting to be discovered, they were waiting to destroy. And Earth wasn't just a planet, it was a prison. A prison guarding a power so terrible that the universe itself had been forced to forget it. Evelyn knew what she had to do. She would have to find the truth before it found them. But in doing so, she feared she would uncover something far worse than anyone could ever imagine. As the days wore on, Evelyn's sense of urgency only deepened. The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control, and Earth's position as the center of a galactic conflict was becoming all too real. The fleet was nearing, and their intentions, while not yet clear, were ominous. As if the growing signs of unease weren't enough, strange reports began to flood in. Earth's own military, along with a series of global agencies, had been receiving encrypted signals, alien transmissions that seemed to know more about Earth's secret than humanity did. The Pacific Ocean, now ground zero for the mystery, was growing more unstable by the hour. The energy signatures from the depths of the ocean were fluctuating erratically, as though some great entity was stirring beneath the waves. Evelyn had been reading every piece of data coming from the oceanic monitoring stations, and it wasn't just energy surges. There were temperature changes, shifts in the Earth's magnetic field, and seismic activity, everything pointing to the same conclusion. Something was awakening deep within the ocean's dark, unfathomable depths. Every theory, every hypothesis that Evelyn had worked through with her team, seemed to be crumbling beneath the weight of reality. Whatever was hidden beneath the Earth was not just powerful, it was alive, sentient, and it was only a matter of time before it was able to free itself. She couldn't shake the vision of the glowing symbols etched into the ancient tablet, the message that had begun it all. Earth guards something worse. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden message from General Darius. His voice crackled with urgency as the transmission came through. "Evelyn," he began, "we've got a problem. The fleet's movements have changed. They're no longer just on a course toward Earth. They've stopped. We've intercepted their communications. They've detected something. And it's not us." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. What could be more important than Earth? What could possibly make those powerful fleets hesitate now, after everything that had already happened? "It's the ocean," Darius continued, his voice strained. "The fleet isn't just waiting. They found something down there. It's not just the energy signatures. It's a presence, an ancient force they can't explain. They believe it's connected to the power we've been tracking." Evelyn's mind raced. The fleets had reached the same conclusion. Whatever lay beneath the ocean wasn't just connected to the power Earth was guarding. It was the source of it. The answer to the galaxy's oldest mystery. Earth wasn't just holding a weapon. It was holding the very core of a cosmic force, something so ancient, so powerful, that even the most advanced civilizations in the universe had been compelled to keep it hidden. But now, the force was awakening, and it wasn't just the fleets that were concerned. "They're coming, Evelyn." Darius's voice was low, almost defeated. "They've already begun their assault. We can't stop them. We've tried everything. Our defenses, the fleets we've sent, they've been wiped out. Whatever's down there, beneath the ocean, is too powerful." Evelyn felt the weight of those words settle over her. Whatever was rising from the depths, whatever power was stirring, was not something that could be defeated by Earth's current might. The entire planet's defenses were nothing compared to the force they were up against. "We've only got one option," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We need to go to the source. We need to find whatever this entity is and stop it before it can reach the surface." A moment of silence stretched between them. Darius knew what she was suggesting. They were talking about a mission so dangerous that no one in their right mind would ever consider it. To enter the very heart of the disaster, to get as close as possible to the entity that was causing all this, was an act of sheer desperation. "Evelyn, I can't." Darius started, but she cut him off. "You don't have a choice. This is the only way. If we don't, Earth is finished. The fleets are already coming. They'll wipe us out for what we're protecting, and if they don't, whatever is under the ocean will. Either way, we don't have time left." Darius let out a long, frustrated sigh. "All right, but we don't know what's down there. We don't know what we're dealing with. And if we send you, there's no coming back." Evelyn met his gaze through the screen, a steely resolve in her eyes. "We've come too far to turn back now. You said it yourself. Earth is at the center of something far bigger than we are. If we don't stop it here, the universe will collapse into something worse. The weight of the decision hung heavily in the air, but both of them knew there was no other choice. The planet's last hope rested in uncovering the truth behind the ancient warnings and stopping the force beneath the ocean before it could escape. A few hours later, Evelyn stood at the helm of a high-tech deep-sea exploration vessel, surrounded by her most trusted team. Their mission was clear: dive into the Pacific, descend to the deepest depths, and find the source of the disturbance. Armed with the latest technology, they descended into the black waters of the ocean. The pressure outside was immense, and the vessel groaned under the strain. But Evelyn kept her focus. She could feel it, the pulse of energy reverberating through the water. As they neared the location where the energy signatures were the strongest, the vessel's sensors began to glitch, as though something was interfering with their equipment. The deep-sea lights flickered, casting long shadows on the ocean floor, and a deep hum filled the silence, vibrating through the metal walls of the vessel. Then, as if they had reached a point of no return, the lights went out entirely. In that instant, the ocean went silent. And then they saw it. Beneath them, at the very edge of their sensors' reach, something vast and dark stirred. A shape, massive and ancient, rising from the ocean floor. Its form was impossible to comprehend, like a shadow of something that didn't belong to this world. A voice, deep and resonating, seemed to echo through the water. A voice that didn't come from any known source, but from the very fabric of the universe itself. It was speaking in an ancient tongue. And yet, Evelyn understood. "You should have never come here." The words echoed in her mind, and for the first time, Evelyn understood the full extent of the danger Earth faced. Whatever this entity was, whatever power it had been guarding, was now awake, and it was not pleased to have been disturbed. The deep hum reverberated through the walls of the exploration vessel as Evelyn and her team floated at the edge of the abyss, their hearts pounding in unison with the ominous vibrations from the depths. The shadow beneath them was vast, impossibly large, like a creature that had slumbered for eons and was now slowly waking to its own dark purpose. The ocean around them felt like a living thing, as if it were part of the ancient entity below, thrumming with an energy far older and more powerful than anything they had ever encountered. The voice that had echoed through the water was unlike anything Evelyn had heard before. It wasn't just a sound. It was a presence, a force that pressed against her mind, heavy and suffocating. It spoke in a language that seemed to transcend time itself, yet Evelyn understood every word, as though her very soul had been attuned to it. "You should have never come here." The words hung in the air, charged with an ancient, malevolent energy that sent a chill down her spine. There was no mistaking the intent behind them. Whatever this entity was, it wasn't just angry, it was furious. It was a force that had been waiting, perhaps for millennia, for the moment when humanity would dare to uncover its secrets. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as she stared into the inky blackness, trying to discern any sign of movement from the colossal shadow beneath. But the water was still, unnervingly still. It was as if the ocean itself had become paralyzed, caught in the grip of whatever lay below. "Get the scans up," Evelyn commanded, her voice cutting through the tension in the control room. The crew scrambled, their hands flying over the controls. The vessel's instruments began to flicker back to life, but the data they returned was incomprehensible. Numbers, energy readings, and coordinates scrolled across the screens, but nothing made sense. It was as if the very laws of physics had bent and twisted around the ancient force, and nothing they knew could predict or explain what was happening. Suddenly, a massive shockwave rippled through the water, throwing the crew off balance. The vessel groaned, as if it were a toy being tossed about by an unseen hand. Evelyn gripped the console, her knuckles white, her mind racing. The energy levels had spiked, 10 times higher than anything they had measured before. "We need to pull back," one of the engineers shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "This isn't just some ancient power. It's alive, and it's reacting to us." But Evelyn didn't move. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the dark form that was beginning to take shape beneath them. There were no visible features, no limbs, no eyes, just a mass of dark, shifting tendrils that seemed to pulsate with the same energy that had been growing beneath Earth for centuries. But as it moved, it felt alive. Each undulation seemed to carry with it the weight of an entire universe, as though the very fabric of reality was bending around its presence. Suddenly, the tendrils began to rise, stretching toward the surface like massive arms, each one growing larger and more distinct. The crew members gasped as the water around them began to boil, a strange, dark mist rising from the depths, wrapping around the ship. The temperature plummeted, and the air in the vessel grew thick with a suffocating energy that made it hard to breathe. "Brace for impact," Evelyn shouted, just as the entire vessel was lifted off the ocean floor. The power emanating from the creature below had become overwhelming, as if it were pulling at everything around it, bending reality itself. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure lifted. The water calmed. The vessel was dropped back to the ocean floor with a deafening crash. The crew was shaken, but they were alive. For a moment, Evelyn thought they had escaped, thought the creature below had relented. But as the mist around them cleared, the reality of what they were facing sank in. The shadow beneath them was still there, now much closer. It had risen from the ocean's depths, its massive form now hovering just beneath the vessel, its presence filling the space around them. And in the depths of its darkness, Evelyn could see them, glowing symbols, etched deep into the creature's form, symbols that mirrored the ones on the ancient tablet. The connection was undeniable. This wasn't just a creature, it was the key. The very power that had been buried for so long, waiting for someone to awaken it. And now it was awake. For a moment, Evelyn could only stare, her mind racing with the weight of their discovery. This wasn't just a threat to Earth, it was a threat to everything. This entity was the source of the ancient warnings from the lost civilizations, the power that had destroyed them, the power that had been hidden beneath the ocean, buried deep within Earth's core. And now it was here, ready to rise. The voice returned, this time louder, clearer, as if it was speaking directly into her mind. "You are too late. The galaxy is mine. Earth will be the first to fall, and then all will follow." Evelyn's blood ran cold. There was no negotiation, no bargaining with this entity. It had waited for eons, and now it was ready to claim what it believed was its rightful inheritance, the entire universe. But Evelyn couldn't let it happen. She had come too far. Earth's survival, and perhaps the entire galaxy's, rested on stopping this force from reaching the surface. She knew what had to be done. They had to stop the awakening, destroy the source of its power, whatever it took. She turned to the crew, her voice steady despite the overwhelming fear creeping up her spine. "We need to disable the creature's connection to the surface. We have to stop the power flow before it can rise any further. It's our only chance." But as she spoke, the air around them began to shimmer. The creature below was beginning to communicate, broadcasting its signal out into space. Earth was no longer the only target. The entire galaxy would feel the consequences of this awakening. Suddenly, Evelyn's screen flickered to life. The fleet that had been approaching Earth was no longer just a distant threat. It was here. Ships, enormous and filled with armed soldiers, surrounded the area. The fleets that had come to contain Earth's secret had now become part of the conflict. They were there to destroy the creature beneath the ocean. But the creature was too powerful, too ancient. Evelyn knew then, with a sinking heart, that the universe's fate was now in their hands. There was no turning back. Whatever happened next would determine whether Earth would survive, whether humanity would survive. And as the battle for control of the galaxy began, she realized that the true enemy wasn't just the creature from beneath the ocean. It was the power that had been hidden for so long, waiting for the right moment to rise. And now, that moment had come. The universe would never be the same again.